VJ Edgecombe just did something that literally has never happened before in the history of the league. It's not an exaggeration to say that this is the best start to a rookie guard's career in the history of the league. VJ Edgecombe right now, through his first 3 career games, is averaging 25, 5, and 5. That has never happened before for any rookie guard ever. And for a Philadelphia team that was in desperate need of a lifeline for their franchise, they found one, and they found one to an extent that it completely changes their future. And if you go back to the time of the draft, everyone knew that this was a massive selection for Philadelphia. They had gone through this really weird offseason the year prior where they brought in Paul George in free agency, a move that most people, including myself, were really excited about. They signed Joel Embiid to an extension, which at the time really didn't make a whole lot of sense at all. And then they have the disaster season. Paul George barely plays. When he does play, he does not look good. Joel Embiid misses a bunch of games, which has kind of become normal now, but also didn't look particularly healthy even when he did play, which creates even more angst and anxiety in terms of what the future of the team is going to look like. And then you go to the 2025 draft, and the only reason they have the 3rd pick and are in position to take VJ Edgecombe is, one, because they were as bad as they were and they tanked towards the end of the season, and also they got good lottery luck to move up to 3rd overall, a selection that theoretically they could have just lost due to the pick protections that they owed, but they move up in the lottery and they take VJ Edgecombe. And there were also conversations about maybe not taking Edgecombe. For the majority of the college season, the consensus was that Ace Bailey would have been a top 3 pick in this class alongside Dylan Harper and Cooper Flagg. He kind of forces his way to a different situation, or I'm sure Philly would say now that they were always going to be taking Edgecombe over Bailey. Regardless, they made that decision, which I talked more about in a recent video I made about the 2025 draft class as a whole. And the other decision that they made was to keep the pick in the first place. There were a lot of conversations about them possibly trading this pick for someone like Lauri Markkanen, who's playing really well in Utah right now, and it put them in a situation that a couple of other franchises have been in over the last handful of years. Thinking about the Portland Trailblazers with the Scoot Henderson pick, thinking about the Golden State Warriors with the James Wiseman and Jonathan Kuminga picks, where you have a team that's kind of in the middle, could use an infusion of right now talent, and you have this top pick, you could potentially trade for it, but it's much more difficult once you actually get into that scenario to actually find someone around the league that fits what you need in exchange for that trade. Even though Markkanen would have been really good for them, it's unclear how much more they would have had to trade than the 3rd overall pick, and it's unclear how willing Philly was to do that in the first place, which to me at the time signaled that they were starting to move their thought processes more towards what is this team going to look like around Tyrese Maxey and Tyrese Maxey's timeline, rather than thinking about, as they obviously were the offseason prior, how can we best maximize the timeline of Joel Embiid. That offseason, their decision to keep this pick and to take VJ Edgecombe signaled to me, okay, we're thinking about Maxey now. We are moving on a little bit from the Joel Embiid timeline, or at least we're not making decisions based around what Joel Embiid can or can't be for us. And right now, that looks like an unbelievable situation and decision for Philadelphia, because this is not fake. Like VJ Edgecombe, yes, he's hitting a ton of shots, as are the Sixers as an entirety of a team. I think everybody or almost everybody is shooting over 40% from 3, but it's real. If you watch the games, the eye test, he passes it with like an A++. He's guarding well, he's getting to the rim, he's making smart decisions with the ball, he's shooting well on and off the ball so that him and Maxey can kind of play together. Maxey's averaging 37 a game alongside of VJ Edgecombe's 25, 5, and 5. It is all real. When you go back to all of the decisions they had to make at the time of the draft, they nailed every single one of them, at least so far. And now that they've gotten off to this really good start to the season, they're 3-0. This is a really good start for everyone on the team. It brings up 2 questions. One is, man, how good could we actually be once Paul George and Joel Embiid are back healthy? Paul George has not played at all as of the recording of this video as he recovers from injury, and Embiid has played a little bit, but he hasn't looked particularly healthy. He's on a minutes restriction, and the thought process is Maxey, Edgecombe, Jared McCain hasn't played at all yet this year, and he could have won Rookie of the Year if he'd played the entire season last year. Then Paul George, then Embiid, Quentin Grimes, Kelly Oubre, a bunch of these depth pieces in a weak Eastern Conference. All of a sudden you're thinking, what could we be this season with Paul George and Joel Embiid potentially healthy. Obviously, the likelihood is, and history tells us, those guys are not going to be healthy, whether it be the entirety of the season or when it matters in the postseason, especially given how bad they looked in Philly last year. But it does make you wonder, wait, what could we be this year? All of a sudden, VJ Edgecombe is playing this well. Our ceiling just went up a ton in a weak Eastern Conference. The other thing it brings to mind is, man, it would be really nice if we didn't have Paul George and Joel Embiid on the roster. Those two guys are owed $300 million over the next 3 seasons. Paul George is under contract for 2 more years after this one, and Embiid for 3 more years after this one. And in a salary cap environment in the NBA where teams are terrified of having even one bad contract on the roster, having 2 gigantically bad contracts completely limits what Philadelphia will potentially be able to do moving forward if they do make the seemingly correct decision at this point to focus their team building strategy around the foundation of Tyrese Maxey and VJ Edgecombe. And I'm sure many of you are thinking, okay, well, why don't they just trade one or both of those guys, get rid of that salary and move on? No one wants either of them. As much as the Sixers don't want the bad contracts of Paul George and Joel Embiid on their roster if they made that decision, other teams around the league certainly do not. That's why there were trade structures at the time of the draft that involved the Sixers trading Paul George and the 3rd pick in exchange for somebody, because they were going to have to attach the 3rd pick to bring any value to Paul George. And because of the way things are structured right now, money-wise, there's just no team around the league that's going to want Paul George. And I would argue there's no team around the league that would want Joel Embiid either, given the way that he's looked, which again, just really restricts your potential future. Not to mention the fact that they don't own their 2026 first round pick. It's top 4 protected to Oklahoma City. If they're going to keep playing this well throughout the entire year, they're going to give that pick away. And they owe a 2028 first to the Nets that is top 8 protected. So you're looking at a situation where, yes, there's excitement around Maxey and Edgecombe. And what you'd really want to do right now, if you could choose, is snap your fingers and get rid of Paul George and Joel Embiid potentially, and have all of your picks and build around those 2 guys. But you don't have that. You have this weird in between of this really exciting backcourt combo with kind of the old era weighing things down contract-wise, and some of the transactions they've made over the last couple of years to support that old era, limiting your first-round pick selection as well. And what this really all makes me think about is, what if they didn't get VJ Edgecombe? What would this team look like if they had just given away that pick, if they didn't land within the pick protection that they had on it? And it's Maxey who's playing really well, Quentin Grimes is playing well, you're waiting on Jared McCain to come back. But Edgecombe's presence on this team and what he could mean for their future truly does change everything. I know that that's a title that everybody loves to use. It's accurate in this case because it elevates them to a different point. The situation is so weird that they needed positive. They need any kind of lifeline they can get. And as much as any team in the league needed a lifeline this offseason, that team was the Philadelphia 76ers. And so now moving forward for them, we have to get an answer to those 2 thoughts I brought up earlier. One, what could they be if Paul George and Joel Embiid come back and are healthy? That is still within the realm of possibility that they could be one of the best teams in the East this year once they get those guys back. And then the other thought, of course, would be, what would they look like if they could move on from those guys, get rid of them, if they were able to find a team that was interested in what Joel Embiid had to offer and what Paul George has to offer, even on those contracts? Or can you just wait it out for a year, be okay this year, and then try and trade Paul George in the offseason with only 2 years left on his contract? All of that to say, as always, things are going to be weird in Philadelphia. We're going to be on Joel Embiid watch every single night. If he starts looking like an MVP and healthy all of a sudden, I could start seeing the Sixers as a real contender at the top of the Eastern Conference. I'm not confident that that is going to be the case, but like I said, it is within the realm of possibility, and that maybe we should just call them that, the Philadelphia realm of possibilities, because there's always something weird happening. There's always something strange happening, and the VJ Edgecombe of it all to begin the season just adds to that. And I can't wait to see what they continue to do throughout the year. Maybe they trade Joel Embiid. Maybe he's on a different team. Maybe they trade some future picks for Lauri Markkanen to really complete the roster. I don't know. What I do know is VJ Edgecombe's awesome. He's going to be on the team. Tyrese Maxey's going to be on the team. Beyond that, I have no idea. Good luck, Philadelphia.